Hello everybody and welcome to Amphlett Reviews, back with a Hong Kong content review, here with the final entry in the Long Holly series that I've been doing for a little bit of time now. It's been an absolute blast from going from all the Shaw Brothers movies to some of the kind of interesting kind of wacky choices within the kind of the late 80s, and now finally ending it on one of my personal favorites and I think his best film still is Drunken Master 2. As mentioned in previous videos, there are other movies in Long Hollywood's kind of filmography that I simply just don't have access to, or not available on easy access DVD, or not available for streaming, or not available on Blu-ray, including his final movie, Drunken Monkey, which is something I definitely want you to check out, including also Drunken Master 3, which I think is just a sequel title name only, nothing to do with actually these two movies, but just kind of capitalizing on the success. If I do get access to those films down the line, I definitely will be reviewing them and discussing them on the channel, but I think it'd be a good point to kind of end this kind of series on a really, really strong high note, and one of my personal favorites, as mentioned, to be Drunken Master 2. This is the archive collection from Warner Brothers, the US import. This is back a couple of years ago when they just kind of freshly came out. It was initially released in, I believe, in Japan and Hong Kong and various other kind of regions, already uncut, part of the Warner Brothers kind of lineup. And many people kind of imported it over. And I'm really happy to have this edition, being it's actually fully uncut on a really great transfer as well. Unfortunately, no extras whatsoever. It's very bare bones. I think it's just a trailer only. And as you can see there, yeah, it's pretty empty. There is a UK edition from HMV exclusive, part of the Warner Brothers kind of collection as well, but that also has the exact same kind of transfer, it has the exact same kind of special features, which is just a trailer, but you do get some artwork cards and a kind of a slipcase booklet as well. So if you don't have access to it in terms of the US import and you're in the UK, you can get it very easy access, fully uncut, available on Blu-ray at your local HMV. Now, Drunken Master 2 was released in 1994, directed by Long Holly and partially directed by Jackie Chan. He did the third act of this film, being the fact there was a interesting kind of, diving into kind of the behind the scenes of a disagreement in terms of how the final act would kind of play out in terms of the fight sequences, in terms of how it's staged and what Jackie Chan wanted to do and envisioned to do versus what Long Holly was doing. So Long Holly did most of the film up until the third act, which, as you can tell from watching that third act of the film, fully uncut on the Blu-ray edition, it is a fucking awesome third act. It is relentless. It is bonkers, crazy. Cannot believe Jackie Chan put himself out there, do these really dangerous stunts, really imaginative, really creative, and just complete bonkers from Jackie Chan, but really raising the bar to another level. And that's something that Jackie Chan does time and time again, with getting into multiple injuries over his kind of career through various different films, as probably covered on the channel, and most people would know, following kind of Jackie Chan's career, he always liked to push the envelope in terms of comedy, in terms of action, in terms of performance, and really make sure his films are box office hits, essentially. And this is a Golden Harvest film. Obviously, a fantastic collaboration with them for quite some time now, about a decade up to this point, since joining Golden Harvest. We're doing kind of these police procedural movies, and then doing his various different kind of projects here and there. And it's been very experimental during the kind of like the 80s going into the 90s, and this is the kind of the sweet spot where he's massively got international fame. I think this is just on the cusp of him doing Rush Hour, or before or after Rush Hour, I believe. So he is at the peak of his absolute career and doing these really fantastic movies. And this is a joint collaboration from Golden Harvest, distributed by Warner Brothers as well. Now, in terms of Long Holly, this is a really kind of big deal for him. This is a really kind of big film for him to kind of undertake. In the fact, up to this point, his kind of career was very kind of oddly kind of shifted back and forth. He was dealing with cancer and kind of, there's personal kind of matters going on in his life. He wasn't getting the same caliber of work after doing Shaw Brothers than you would expect. And that's a common kind of story that you've seen kind of multiple times over with various different directors. Or they went to TV work, or they did smaller India budget based movies. And Long Holly was dealing with a lot of personal issues, obviously having cancer, and he did a cameo within Pedicab Driver with Sammo Hung, and that was kind of a big kind of comeback, basically saying, yes, I'm here, I'm still alive, I've still got it, essentially doing his fantastic kind of pole work. And it's great to see him here in this film as well, being the fact he does an extended cameo during the start of the film, where he does a bit of a toe-to-toe with Jackie Chan, which is great. He does a really fantastic kind of, team-up kind of sequence at this kind of, tavern kind of bar with the henchmen. Really bonkers, really crazy kind of, all-out fight between the bottom floor and the top floor, picking each other up and doing these really extraordinary, very tiring kind of stunts, I imagine. You know, Jackie Chan wielding a very nasty kind of bamboo stick kind of weapon, which causes a lot of damage. So it's great to see kind of Wong Kar-wai perform in this film in terms of his performance and his kind of martial arts still being on point, still being excellent, and directing this film, of course, alongside. All the themes and the characters and this kind of really cool story about a father and a son, and Jackie Chan's character basically being, you know, much older now than he was in the first initial movie. He's still got a bit of an odd relationship with his father, which is kind of like a noble kind of, you know, established kind of, you know, remedy kind of, you know, medicine doctor essentially, but also having skill in kind of martial arts. And Jackie Chan's character is always getting himself into trouble, is always getting himself into mischief. See that kind of internal kind of struggle going back and forth. Some of it's played for a lot of humor, some of it's kind of, you know, very dramatic and very over the top in places. But again, it's very appropriately well handled, and I think it paces itself really well throughout the film. This idea of, you know, a really struggling kind of relationship, and this idea of honor and respect. And, you know, Jackie Chan's always getting himself into scraps and kind of scrapes, and, you know, he's taken this vow to basically never drink again, you know. And in the film, it's interesting because his mom actually encourages him to, you know, drink wine, you know, basically defend your honor, defend our father's honor, defend our practice, and defend yourself essentially, because Jackie Chan's character, again, is a good fighter and he's very skilled, but he is the most powerful when he's doing drunken style boxing, and that's demonstrated quite a lot within the first movie. And this one was a bit of a restraint of him actually going into that, because, you know, there is that risk of him becoming a complete boozer, or something of serious kind of consequence will happen if he keeps on drinking to the same extent. To him to channel this kind of power, it relies on him to being drunk quite a lot, and that relies a lot on the wine, and affects his judgment and affects his kind of ability to kind of, you know, see his surroundings essentially. And it's a very interesting kind of talking with Anita Moody, his mother character in the film, which is very funny, also very cheeky. Definitely reminds me of The Legend of Feng Hung. She's a really good supporting character in this film as well, and really adds to the kind of the family dynamic and the kind of back and forth ideals of kind of like, you know, raising this child essentially, where Jackie Chan his character is playing. And that's very Wong Kar-wai in terms of his kind of themes and what he does in previous movies. This idea of the family unit, this idea of the internal struggle, this idea of great power comes great responsibility, quoting Spider-Man. And it's very true in this film. This idea of having really powerful skill set, but it relies on you basically making a mockery of yourself, being a fool essentially. And sometimes you can tip the kind of the wine, the kind of the drunken balance one way or the other kind of thing. And that's demonstrated in the film as well to a really harsh extent. And the storyline for Drunken Master 2 basically is set within 20 to 30 years later. You've got this, you know, the British kind of colony coming over essentially, basically wanting to import these very valuable kind of Chinese kind of items, these very, you know, basically treasure jewels kind of thing, you know, representing the heart and the spirit of kind of China and the country itself. And you've got very shady kind of business Britishmen that basically want to kind of export these kind of, you know, items overboard, and they want the factory workers, this kind of steel mill factory, to work overtime and to work them to death essentially, and to threat them, to beat them up, because they need to have a certain deadline so they can sneakily import these kind of items with the kind of the metal shipments alongside customs without kind of, you know, paying the taxes or anything along those lines. And you've got the very shady, very kind of nasty kind of British guys with having kind of foremans and, you know, other alliance alongside it. And you've got their kind of, you know, reigning kind of shadow over the kind of the small people essentially. And this is what the kind of one of the threats are in the film. What that's going on, the core of the film is essentially the family unit between Jackie Chan, his father and his mother, alongside a couple of kind of friend characters and kind of alliances and kind of sort of enemies, I guess, that do kind of play out back and forth into the film. And that's the kind of the core of the film, this kind of central relationship between Jackie Chan's character and his father, and the struggles of, you know, having this great kind of ability, this kind of great power of drunken style boxing, but comes at a high cost, at the detriment to his kind of father's reputation, you know, getting into kind of hijinks and mischief. And some of it is his fault, some of it's not, some of it's just defending his honor. It's a very high-spirited kind of character, Feng Hung's character is, and very similar to the first one. Even though he's a little bit older in this one, he's trying to do the best he can. He's trying to maintain his father's wishes. He's trying to maintain a style of kind of respect, but also his mom's quite cheeky as well at the same time. You know, his father's quite strict and quite stern and kind of like very honorable and respectful, and, you know, loves his family, but just wants, you know, his son to basically grow up a little bit essentially. And his mom's a bit of a kind of mischief kind of character herself, with doing kind of gambling and facing off against the wrong kind of people, defending honors of kind of working class kind of, you know, folk, which is demonstrated in the film, and how this British kind of colony kind of, you know, shadow is overforming on this kind of local little town. And the consequences of getting involved in this is quite high and quite dangerous. And this is something that is really, again, great to watch on screen. Very similar to the first one. He's got this internal kind of struggle, and this kind of back and forth relationship between him and his father and mother is quite interesting. It kind of allows the film to kind of, you know, get an understanding of his motivation, who he is now, kind of thing, many years later, and what he wants to do, but what he can't do at the same time. This really builds up to some really excellent kind of fight sequences. Of course, the fight scenes in Drunken Master 2 are absolutely phenomenal. And him taking over to do this really extraordinary, kind of really bonkers, crazy kind of third act sequence, playing with actual fire, you know, really kind of hurting himself, and really pushing the envelope to another level. You can tell he really wanted to get the audience really kind of howling and get really excited, and the camera work, how it's used, the music or lack of music at times, how he used the kind of the location, going from the ground floor to the top floor, using the carts, using kind of coal and sticks and all sorts of different things, demonstrating his ability with drunken style fighting, with the industrial kind of alcohol, how that's kind of like basically kind of hurting him and really kind of affecting him, but also giving him like mad, like Hulk strength, is pretty interesting kind of demonstration for the film itself. Truly wonderful and amazing and a really exciting kind of third act fight sequence, which even now is still baffling, the fact they've cut those kind of scenes down to a bare minimum within the US version, which I just think is really strange, the fact he went out of his way so much to really give the audience something special, and yet they trimmed it down anyway, which I think is just really kind of baffling to me. Overall, Drunken Master 2, what more can I say that hasn't already been said 1,000 times at this point? Very similar to the first one. As no surprise, this film is fucking awesome. I think it is way superior than the first one, but the first one was still goddamn good nonetheless. This is Jackie Chan at his absolute peak during the mid-90s, international megastar, and he shows his demonstration, his talents, his humor, his amazing kind of fight sequences on screen. He's learned so much from doing all the way from the first one up to now, doing so many different variations of movies. And working and collaborating with Long Holloway just makes this film even more special now than compared to my initial viewing many years ago kind of thing. And just kind of seeing familiar actors, having a bit more of a wider scope of kind of movies that kind of help influence that. And, you know, demonstrates still that Jackie Chan is still a very strong household name. There's a reason why his films made a lot of money in the box office, why they are universally loved. And Drunken Master 2 is absolutely brilliant. It's one of the absolute best movies. The uncut version is the only way to go. Do not watch the Miramax version. It is available, of course, on the US import, or you can get it as part of the H&B exclusive edition, which is the exact same version transfer, and the one extra. We just get a little bit more of the booklets and postcards. And it's a really brilliant final kind of send-off to the Long Holloway series that I've been doing as well. I will be checking out a few of his movies when I get access to them, but I think this is definitely one of his highlight movies for sure. Absolutely one of his absolute best for many different reasons, and you can definitely tell his imprint and his kind of style and his say was definitely on this film. It's a shame he didn't have the full credit with the third act, but saying that, we did get something quite special within Jackie Chan's kind of taking over, so leave that to you as an audience member to kind of digest. So what are your thoughts and opinions on Drunken Master 2? Please comment down below. Would you look to see a Drunken Master 3 with Jackie Chan? Do you think there's room for potential another one? Do you think he might come back and maybe do another one at some point down the line? Who knows? So meantime, guys, Amphlett Reviews, signing out.
So, see.